everyone who is joining us today. Please say hello in the chat and let us know where you're joining from. And I have a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. This webinar will be recorded, so you can come back to this link to access the recording at any time. Someone from Italy, from Panama. We've got a whole host of places. Florida. Welcome. If you have any questions during the webinar, please drop those in the Q&A tab. It's the question mark icon. It's either on the right or the bottom of your screen. And you can also upvote any questions that you're interested in. So we'll have some time after the presentation to go through each of those in order of upvotes. And feel free to leave comments in the chat area as we go as well. I just wanted to point out at the bottom of your screen, there's a green button for a Weglot free trial. So you can click that at any time and sign up for a free trial. We have a couple of people from Weglot joining us today. Romain Pichot is the Weglot developer in charge of the Squarespace integration, and he'll be monitoring the chat and will also join us for the Q&A. So if you have technical questions, we've got you covered today. But we're going to start with sharing best practices for building a multilingual website and also demoing Weglot. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to Thomas Fanchon, or Thomas, who is the partnership manager at Weglot, and he'll be running our presentation today. Welcome, Thomas.
Hey, everyone.
We've got people from New York and London, all over the world.
That's awesome. So, yep, I mean, it's super nice to be there today. I see a lot of people on the chat. So, as Christy said, we are going to discuss about how to make your Squarespace website multilingual. But first, let's just talk about how to actually build a multilingual website, which is one major question that everyone wants to know about. I'm going to share some tips with you about how to create a multilingual website. So here are basically 3 keys for your multilingual website. First, you have translating your text, translating your images, and then your SEO settings. So let's just dive into what you need to think about when it comes to translating your text. So the languages. So the number one question that you have in mind is how to pick my languages. You have 2 ways of doing it. First, you can simply target one location. Let's say I'm in France and I want to target the US, then I'm going to select English as a language. I'm in France and now I want to target Spain, so I can use Spanish for the translation, for example. And the second way is simply going through Google Analytics and simply see in which languages your users are browsed in. And then you can select maybe the top 3 languages and just to choose to translate your website, according to that. Sorry, I'm just drinking. And then the second thing we want to actually think about is the type of translation. So you can choose machine translation, human translation. The good thing about machine translation is that it's super easy to set up and the costs are not so high. But the bad part is simply that there are actually you're trusting Google algorithm, translation solution algorithm like Yandex, DeepL, or others for your translation, and you can have some tiny mistakes for your translation, which can be a pain. And for the human translation, what is good is the quality of your translation. You're basically making sure that all your translation are bulletproof. And the, let's say, bad part of it is going to be the cost. I think it costs around 8 cents to 25 cents per word, which can be a huge amount of money if you're translating all your website, which brings me to the third solution, which is basically mixing both the machine translation and the human translation. And for your less important pages, let's say you're going to have machine translation, and for your most important pages, you can select human translation. And you can also look at the traffic that you have on each page, and maybe for some of the pages, you can select human translation and hire a professional translator, or do your translation by yourself. And one thing you always want to keep in mind is the culture differences. So words doesn't have the same meaning in the different region, different countries that you're targeting. So you always want to keep that in mind when you're doing your translation or editing it. And then let's talk about another topic, which is translating your images. It's basically super simple. You need to make sure to adapt your marketing according to the countries that you are targeting. And let's just see one example. I'm going to share my tab. So here I'm on the TuneCore website, and I'm on the English version of the website. If I just go in the Indonesia part, for example, here you have another image. So basically, depending on which country the users are visiting the website, they will see another image and another star, which is basically adapting the marketing to the person that is visiting the website. It's something that is super easy to be done and that you should always do. And next, so if you are translating your text, you are translating your images, you're doing everything right. One thing that you want to do is actually to make sure that your page are properly indexed. So you want to make sure that you actually have this checklist, sorry. Let me drink again. And I'm going to run you through multilingual SEO basics. So the first one is having unique and dedicated URLs. You have different structures to tell Google that your page are translated and to index them. The first one is country-specific domain. Then you have subdomain or subdirectories. You have an example here of each URL structure. And each of these URL structures have their pros and cons, sorry. And basically, the most important thing is to make sure that you have unique and dedicated URLs if you look at what Google say. And then we can talk about href on tags too. So the href on tags, it can seem like a little bit tricky. So here you have an example. And basically, you always want to make sure that it's in your header or your engine technique or your sitemap. If you have the Google bot that is running around on the search engines, you want to make sure that it actually see that your page is translated in this language and it's targeting this location. You need to add this href on tags, and that way the Google bot is going to review your page, make sure that it's viewed by Google and that it's indexed properly. And technically speaking, you will have to add it in each of your pages, which can be a pain if you have a lot of pages and you're adding new content, but you have some solution to automatize all of that. Next, we can talk about metadatas. Here is an example. So it's the Weglot website. You want to make sure that if a user is doing a search query in his language, the result of your pages appears in their language. So here it's in French, and if someone searches for Spanish, it's going to appear in Spanish. If it's in German, it's going to appear in German, and so on. Then it's one tip that we had from an agency that is actually working with us is the language switcher visibility. Basically, they found out that by making the language switcher visible, the pages were ranking higher on the search engines. So I'm just sharing it with you, and here is an example of how it looks on Weglot. And the last thing that you always want to have is server-side translation. That way you can make sure that everything is translated within your source code, so your metadata, your alt images, and everything on your website. And you make sure that everything is properly indexed on Google or on search engines. So that was the first part. I hope you found it interesting. Maybe it was quick, but it was just to give you a quick overview of all of this. If you have some questions about it, feel free to ask it in the chat or in the Q&A tab. And we can move to the next part, which some of you are waiting for. It's actually the implementation of Weglot on a Squarespace website. So let me just show it to you. I'm going to share this tab. So here I am on my Squarespace dashboard. I'm just going to drink again. Sorry. And so I'm just going to create a website. So let's select that, for example, and to run you through. So I'm going to say my very beautiful Squarespace website. Here we go. I'm going to close this tab, and I'm just going to run you through how to install Weglot. So I will go on settings, go on language and region, and here I have Weglot. So I'm just going to connect it. You can see my tab right now. Oh gosh, there is an issue. Just give me 2 seconds. Sorry about that. I think it's okay now. You can see my tab, but I don't know why I can't click on it anymore. Just give me 2 seconds. It's what happens when you're doing lives. So
no worries.
I will
While
share.
you're on that, Tama, we had a really
Yeah.
great question in the chat. So,
Okay.
and it's something that I brought out too. So the SEO indexing is so important because there was a workaround that I used to use for Squarespace that didn't take that into account, and it got really messy. So the fact that Weglot handles it automatically is amazing. So Jack asked, does Weglot do all the href link stuff for you? As per page on Squarespace is a pain. Agreed, Jack. It's a nightmare. So Romain answered yes. It automatically adds and manages those tags for you, as well as SEO tags and so on. So it's a real game changer for those of us that have tried to do this manually in the past. Yeah, so, and I also dropped that into the Q&A, Jack, as well, so we can dive into that a little more later. And I see we've got a couple other questions in the Q&A. So just a reminder that if you have questions, drop them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll get to those.
Yep. Just give me 2 seconds again. I don't know what's happening, but I can't have access
Take your
to
time, Tama.
everything is just blocked. Yep, it's good now. Yep, go ahead.
We're good?
Yeah, we should be good now.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to the wing and let you show your screen again.
Yep, sorry guys about it. So basically, like, it's nothing really complicated. I've just created a Squarespace website, which is like the basic thing that everyone can do. Sorry. Live. Here we go. We should be good. Add message. So I've just created that website, and I was just working on basically making you look at the settings and how you do it. So I was here and I was on settings, and there is language and region. I just click on it, and then there is this little pop-up here. So to connect your Squarespace website to Weglot, I'm just going to connect it. Share this tab now. So you have this little pop-up that appear. You need to allow and agree to the terms. Just going to allow it. And now, so I already have an account, of course. I have 2 projects, and I always create beautiful Squarespace websites. So I'm going to create another beautiful Squarespace website and save it. The original language is already detected. And then I'm going to select French as the destination language, as it's way easier for me. Save. And after that, so it's done, and I'm going to share my screen again, don't worry. Here you go. Here you go. Now you can see my screen again. So basically you have this pop-up, you can preview the site, and so I'm just going to minimize that page so that you can see the language switcher button here.
Yeah, Thomas, if you hit that,
Yep.
the arrow in the upper right.
Yeah, then it will appear like,
Yeah.
So there you have English, and I will choose to select it as French now. And then you can see that everything is translated. So basically with Weglot, you have a first layer of automatic translation, which means that everything is detected on your website and translated. And then you can actually edit all of this translation. So if you just go on settings again, go on language and region, there you will have the details, so your plan and some information about the languages, and you can actually choose to edit the translation, which we are going to do. And we actually have a new nice feature, which is basically multilingual customer notification. So all your emails and everything that you're sending to your customers can actually be translated now. And then you have a multilingual SEO setup, but we are going to review that afterwards. So I'm just going to edit the translation and share this other tab now. It's not the right project, but don't worry about it. Here it is. So when you are going to edit your translation, you have it on languages here, English and French is the language pair, and you can actually edit all of it here. And as soon as you make an edit, it's going to be live on your website. So if I just go back on the website, don't worry, I'm going to share my tab again. And here we go. And for example, I turn it into English. I'm going to select this, go on Weglot. Here we go. Search for this. Here it is. And instead of this, I'm going to write Thomas. So it's save, manually edited translation. And then I go back on my website. I'm going to turn it in French, and I'm going to refresh the page. Here we go. So now it's like the translation is here, it's live. And then on the Weglot dashboard, you have multiple other options. So you can have access on all your URLs here and fetch all the pages in order for you to have all your translation, and don't do it manually on your website. You have a visual editor. We're going to review it afterwards. You have glossary rules. So let's say in French, I always want to translate hello by bonjour or hello by salut, which is like two different ways of saying hello in French. I can add it here, like always translate hello by bonjour, or always translate hello by salut, for example. And then you can also hire professional translations, and you have cool options here. I don't have any URL slugs here, but if I add some, I would be able to actually translate them. And you also have the statistic part, which is interesting. Here, obviously, you have no stats because I just created the website, but I will show you another website where you have multiple statistics and some traffic on it afterwards. And normally we'll have it all here. And then you just have your settings page. So it's basic settings about everything on your website. You have a language switcher button that you can edit if you want. The translation exclusion part, which is also kind of cool. If you want to exclude a block or a page or a URL, you can add it here. Then it's the setup part, the Squarespace setting part too. So if you have dynamic elements that we can detect, you can add it there. And here you have a theme. So let's say you want to transfer the ownership of a program because you're an agency and you want to transfer it to your customers, you can do it here. If you want to add members, translators, or people, you can do it here. And yep. These are basically like the simple setup that we have. I can show it to you on a live website if you want, so we can have access to maybe more stats. So that's the official, one of the official Squarespace demo that we use. And you can see that there are way more translation, and you can have a lot of statistics here over the languages that we selected. And it can be used, as I said in the beginning, if you just want to hire a professional translator, or if you want to fine-tune some translation that you have, it can be an indicator. Here, I think in Spanish, in German, we have a lot of traffic from time to time, so maybe it will be the good time for us to actually dive into the translation in German and do some good works there. And one thing I wanted to show you is the visual editor part. So if I click on start editing, I'm going to share this tab, and I can have access to all the translation here directly. It's another website that we created, but you can have an example of how it works, and you can actually edit it. I'm not going to edit anything as it's one of the official demo, and I don't want to get anyone into trouble, but you can actually edit all of it on the live website. And yep, that was it. And for the multilingual SEO part, I know that we have a question. So basically, we will do everything in terms of adding the href font tags, adding unique and dedicated URLs. So you will have your website properly indexed. We will translate your website via the source code too. So the metadatas, the alt images will be detected. And it's kind of a all-in-one translation solution. We do everything for you, and you don't have to do really anything but to push the live button. So yeah, I hope you found it interesting. And if you have some questions, maybe we can also have Roma here with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
That was great. I loved how fast it was. Just seeing you push a button and then boom. It was there. Emily had a great question in the chat. She wanted anyone who has live sites using Weglot to share their URLs. So that's fantastic. We've got a couple there in the chat if you guys want to check those out. And then we have some questions as well. So I am actually going to jump over to the question tab, and our first question is from Jack. So does Weglot handle all the hreflang stuff for you, as doing it per page on Squarespace is a pain? We talked about that in the chat for a moment, but I wanted to have it here in the Q&A as well for people who are accessing the recording.
Yep, so basically, yes, we do handle that part. It's added automatically, and you don't have nothing to do. So yeah, super easy.
Wonderful.
And even for me, actually, like, yeah, it was a pain. I tried to create a website maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and yes, href font tag, it's really, really difficult if you need to do it all by yourself.
Yes.
So yeah. Let me just invite also Romain here. So
great.
I just send him an invite if you want to join too. Yeah.
Yeah. So another question is, can we specify countries as well for hreflang, or only language?
Let's just wait on Romain. I'm sure he can actually. Here he is. He's our technical guy, and he is today. Hey, Romain.
Hello.
So we have one great question too for you. Can we specify countries as well for hreflang, or only languages?
For hreflang tags, it's only languages, because as far as I know, hreflang tags only are about languages and not countries. So, for instance, we only manage languages.
Okay, easy. All right, next up, we have a sort of a technical question here from Des. I used Weglot for a website that I'm working on, and she has a link here to it that I've also dropped in the chat. But in English, she lost a crossed effect in one of the words in the headline, and it's not centered. So I think what's happening is when the translation happens, some of those CSS effects that were applied on the back end of Squarespace to the English version, no, in the original Italian version, are lost in the English translation. So do you know about that, Ramon? Is it something that she would have to do CSS on her own, or is that something that you guys can work with Squarespace to make sure that both versions are getting those styling effects applied?
Yeah, usually there shouldn't be any difference in the styling between original and translated version. There can be sometimes where there are differences. This is the case here. It can be because a lot of things, but if you have problems like that, we have a wonderful support team at Weglot that always are here to help our users. So this is one of the cases where they can help you very, very quickly. That's something that needs to be looked for, but yeah, it should not be difficult.
Great. Love a good support team. Thank you. Okay, next up, for human translation, is it someone from Weglot's team that would translate a specific page? If you could share a bit more on that, that would be great. That's from Rachel.
So, yep, if you want to go ahead, Romain, I can answer as you want.
Yeah, I can answer. No, we don't have translators in our team, but you can order professional translation through a service that we use.
Yeah.
And it is real humans that will translate your text, and you can also translate manually yourself, or if you have a translator in your team or language speaking friend that can translate your site, you can invite them in your project only with the translator role, so they can have access to only translate their language, and so you are assured that they do not have access to everything. So yeah.
I love that there is a translator role. I actually did not know that. So that's amazing. So you can lock everything down, and then someone that you've hired can just do that job and not access the rest of.
Exactly.
So that's fantastic. All right. Next up, oh, this is an interesting question. How is the experience translating right to left languages to left to right languages and vice versa? So English to Arabic, for example.
I have not a lot of experience with it, but we are definitely managing RTL languages. I don't know, Thomas, if you know more about that.
So it's supported by Weglot. So we do have a lot of right to left languages. So normally it shouldn't be an issue. But as always, like, it's up to test, and like if people want to test it and send us a message if there is like any issue, but normally like it's supported by Weglot and it shouldn't be an issue.
Great. And if you have more questions about that, or if you do have an issue, Roman put the support@weglot.com email in the chat, so you can grab that and reach out directly as well. All right. Oh, this is a good one too. In a website that has large content differences between languages, for example, the original site language doesn't need all the blog posts added for a translated language. I'm guessing that each of those blog posts or pages would need to be added to the exclusion section in Weglot. Is that correct?
if you don't want to have your content translated, it can be like restricted pages. Maybe there are even like some content with like some restricted information, but you don't want to share. You can just like choose to exclude it. It's the same like if you have a specific blog or let's say your brand name or other things that you want to exclude, you can exclude it all on the exclusion tab. Yep.
That's great. So you could exclude like a whole section if you wanted of a page?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Wonderful. And then for blog posts, you would just put in the entire blog post URL?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, we've got some more good questions here. Des asks, how does Weglot affect SEO and Google rankings? So this comes back to when I tried that workaround years ago, and it really tanked the SEO because I wasn't using the hreflang tags correctly. So I know that you guys handle this well, so I'd love to hear your answer about how the SEO rankings are affected.
So,
a lot.
Yep. Normally on that side, everything is done automatically. So we are adding the hreflang tags, we are adding unique and dedicated URLs, we are translating the metadata, the alt images. So all that part is covered. But as the first layer is machine translation, I would say that if you want to rank on specific languages, then you need to do some work in terms of what are the keywords that your users are searching and so on, to make sure that you target those specific keywords and you have like a content team or even yourself, you are doing it and you're adding those keywords on the translated version to make sure that you are ranked properly. But for the overall like technical aspect of SEO, it's all done automatically by Weglot.
Love automatic solutions. Amazing. One more question here, and we still have some time. If you have other questions, anyone who's here live, feel free to drop a question in the Q&A tab. Another question here is, what if the content you want to exclude is in a translated language and not in the original language? Does that work the same?
Yeah, that should. You can exclude anything on your site. It doesn't depend on the language it is in. So you can exclude anything you want, either a URL or just a block or just a little bit of text on your site. So that shouldn't make a difference.
And yeah, you can even like, if there is like specific words that you don't want to be translated, like you can say like never translate this word by this. That can also help, I think, if there are like specific sentence words that you don't want to be translated in such ways, or yeah, you can also do it.
Great. And then I had a question, and I didn't write it out all the way, but I'm curious about, I loved that you can swap out images for the different translations. And I'm curious about how alt text is handled for those.
So it's translated automatically. I mean, it's detected automatically, and you can have access to it on the translation list. And actually, you have a filter to detect like meta datas, like SEO datas, and then you can have access to all of it and choose to fine-tune it if you want.
Wonderful. Yeah, I know that's important for the keywords, the SEO conversation we were having earlier. So I had a feeling you had a great solution for that. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? I will give it a couple of moments here. Oh, here we go. Yes, one more question from Catherine. Do you have any examples of URLs that use the right to left, left to right language translation? If you guys can share that. And if you're in the Q&A tab, you can actually comment the link underneath that question as well.
Yeah, I'm also searching on my end. The goal would be to find a Squarespace website that is actually like right to left.
If you don't have Squarespace, if there's another, another web builder as well, just to show us kind of.
Yeah, I can search for it and I don't know, maybe Roma, you have one, but I'm looking
No,
at
but
our customers page.
it's not
Yep. It's a good question.
And Catherine, if we don't have one in the next couple of minutes to share, I will absolutely send out an email with some information after this to everyone who's joined here, and I can include that information there for you.
Yep. Maybe it's the best solution. I'm just checking over like two, but I don't have it. Yeah, I think it's I have a Squarespace website. I have a lot of languages in it, but I don't see any right to left. I thought I found the perfect one. So yeah, maybe like we can send it to you afterwards, Kissy, if you want, and you can share it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send out an email after this with a little more information, and I'll include the support email for Weglot and also some examples that you guys have shared here today, as well as any examples that Tama and Roman want to send over as well.
I just found one. I will post it on the chat.
Roma is too fast for me.
Oh.
It's a Squarespace that has an Arabic language.
Wonderful. So, and actually let me share this and we can look at it together if you guys would like. So, screen. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Wonderful. So if we change it here. So Catherine, if there's anything in particular that you'd like to see here and ask about while we have this pulled up, let us know. Just by dropping it in the chat. But yeah, this is pretty amazing. How much of the layout change is done manually with CSS and how much happens automatically?
I think automatically it will be only the text that will change to right to left. Mm-hmm. But I think we have solutions, CSS solutions to move the layout. I'm not sure if we already have articles on our help center site, but on our FAQ. But yeah, there are definitely solutions to move the layout like this, like on this site.
Mm-hmm. Great. This is so cool. I could just click and play with this all day. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing and we can move on. And another question from Emily here. This is a great question too. Is there a featured websites page, like an inspiration page of websites using Weglot? I'm sure this would be very popular.
This is not something that we have. We do have a customer page where you have like a lot of customers using us, but not only on Squarespace, on other CMSs too, where you can have like some websites that are using a tool, which are kind of nice and were like nice case studies. We can have stats and customers featuring there, but on Squarespace, I don't think we have that. Maybe it's something that we should actually work on with the Squarespace team. And yeah, this is definitely, I think, a really good idea.
I think that would be great. And also, if you guys would send me a few of your just like most beautiful examples of Weglot Squarespace websites, I'd love to share those in the email that I send out as well. Perfect. All right. Any other questions for our pros here? It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for, oh yeah, Emily says, I'm sure people would love to submit their sites for that inspo page too. Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. lots of, I think, you know, as designers, we always want to see examples of how other people are using the tools, and to see those specific Squarespace, Weglot sites would be super helpful. Thank you both so much for being here today and for the walkthrough. I forget how quick it all happens. Like when you click the button to connect it, it's like, boom, there's your other language done. And then you can go in and just clean it up, you know, clean up any translations that need your attention. But, and Jack says, thank you for integrating so extensively with Squarespace. Yes, agreed. It's really nice to have such a great solution for Squarespace. Tama and Romain, thank you so much for being here, sharing your expertise and showing us the product. If you guys have any questions for Weglot, Romain has dropped the support email in the chat, and I'm going to just copy it here and paste it in. And we have one more question before we go. Does it matter what language new content is added in? Can you add new content in a translated language that translates to the original language?
Yeah, it matters. When you set up your project on Weglot, we need to know the original language to be able to translate it in other languages. We do not actually detect automatically the language. You have to tell us what the original language is. So the content of the original site needs to be in the original language you have set up before.
That makes sense. So you're using sort of a base language, and then everything is translated from that. So you can't kind of mix and match.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, it always works with pairs, with language pairs, original language and destination language, because we use different machine translation to have the best, to use the best one for this language pair in particular, because they are not always based on the same pairs.
That makes
That's
perfect.
why.
You guys have thought of this. That's great. Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. Tama, Romain, thank you so much for being here today, for showing us Weglot and answering all of our questions. I will send out an email to everyone who's registered with a list of some Squarespace Weglot examples, and also include the ones that you guys have added in the chat here as well. And look forward to partnering with Weglot again in the future. This has been amazing. Thank you guys so much. And thanks
a lot.
everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers.